There is a moment when going through too much can make peace feel suspicious, stops sounding like an idea, and starts feeling personal. It may happen quietly, before anyone else notices. That small timing matters more than it seems. You can look calm from the outside, while something inside begins checking the exits. The pattern is not random, it is trying to protect something. This is where the story begins. At first, it looks like personality. But underneath it is quiet shutdown, a way your mind learned to reduce danger before danger had a name. The clue is in the first reaction. That is why simple situations can feel strangely loaded. A message, a room, a request, or a memory can carry more weight than the moment deserves. That is the quiet part worth noticing. The hidden promise of this video is not to label you. It is to show the survival logic behind too much without turning it into shame. The pattern is speaking before language catches up. Many people miss the mechanism because the behavior works at first. It lowers noise, buys time, and gives you the feeling of control. And it usually learned this honestly. But a strategy can be useful and still become too small. What once protected you can later start choosing your life for you. That is why the answer needs patience. The old pressure is usually not dramatic in the present. It is carrying too much for too long, repeated until the nervous system treats it as normal. The old rule is trying to be useful. After enough repetition, the mind stops asking whether this moment is safe. It asks whether this kind of moment has ever been safe. This is not weakness, it is history moving. That is how one memory becomes a climate. You are not responding only to today, you are responding to every similar room inside you. The difference becomes visible over time. This is why advice can sound insulting. Someone says, just relax, just answer, just try, just let it go. But the system heard a threat first. That small timing matters more than it seems. To the viewer outside, the reaction may look excessive. To the part of you carrying the history, it may look like accurate forecasting. This is where the story begins. The first relief is real. You avoid the pressure and the room gets quieter. The mind says, see, this is why we do it. The clue is in the first reaction. For a while, quiet can feel like proof. Fewer demands, fewer explanations, fewer chances to be misunderstood or pulled back into an old role. That is the quiet part worth noticing. But relief is not always repair. Sometimes it is only the sound of the alarm getting farther away, while the alarm system stays unchanged. The pattern is speaking before language catches up, then the second cost appears, not all at once. It arrives as a smaller life, a narrower set of choices, a quiet sense of being trapped by your own protection. And it usually learned this honestly. The cost is mistaking numbness for peace. It can happen so slowly that you only notice when freedom starts feeling like another kind of room. That is why the answer needs patience. This is the turn. The question is not whether the pattern is bad. The question is whether it still knows the difference between danger and familiarity. The old rule is trying to be useful. A strategy becomes a prison when it cannot update. It keeps solving yesterday, even while today is asking for a more precise answer. This is not weakness, it is history moving. That precision matters. You may need a boundary, not a disappearance. You may need rest, not exile. You may need a pause, not a permanent identity. The difference becomes visible over time. A boundary says, this is where I stop. A prison says, this is where nothing can reach me. The two can feel similar at first. That small timing matters more than it seems. One keeps you present with limits. The other removes you before reality has a chance to prove anything different. This is where the story begins. This is why shame is such a poor tool here. Shame only pushes the pattern deeper underground, where it can keep working without being questioned. The clue is in the first reaction. The pattern began because some part of you was trying to help. It found the fastest path to less pain, and for a while that path made sense. That is the quiet part worth noticing. But the life you are building now may need more than one path. It may need doors, windows, bridges, and a way back to yourself. The pattern is speaking before language catches up. Repair begins in the exact second before the automatic move, before the apology, before the silence, before the performance, before the retreat, and it usually learned this honestly. That second is information. It is not a verdict on your character. It is a small light showing where the old rule still lives. That is why the answer needs patience. If the rule says you must disappear to be safe, you can ask whether a smaller boundary would do. If it says you must prove yourself, you can ask who is judging. The old rule is trying to be useful. This is not about forcing yourself into unsafe places. Some doors should stay closed. Some relationships have earned distance. This is not weakness, it is history moving. But when every door feels unsafe, even gentle ones, the wound may be protecting itself by keeping all new evidence outside. The difference becomes visible over time. The new practice is letting small signals return before forcing a dramatic change. Not perfectly, not publicly, not all at once, but often enough that the system learns another ending. That small timing matters more than it seems. Maybe that starts as one honest sentence. Maybe it starts as one slower breath. Maybe it starts as noticing that the old alarm is loud, not always correct. This is where the story begins. The visual metaphor is quiet cup beside a weathered window. It is not decoration. It is the shape of the emotional problem. The clue is in the first reaction. One side shows the old protection. The other side shows the possibility of contact without collapse, rest without vanishing, strength without hardness. That is the quiet part worth noticing. Over time, safety stops meaning nothing can touch me. It starts meaning I can choose what reaches me and how much of myself I give. The pattern is speaking before language catches up. That is a quieter kind of freedom. It does not require you to become fearless. It only asks that fear stop being the only voice with authority. And it usually learned this honestly. You do not need to become endlessly available. You do not need to explain your whole history to deserve gentleness. That is why the answer needs patience. What helps is noticing the pattern without worshipping it. Respect its origin, then question its current assignment. The old rule is trying to be useful. Ask what it is protecting. Ask what it is costing. Ask whether the same protection could be smaller, clearer, and less lonely. This is not weakness, it is history moving. Sometimes the answer is no, keep the distance. Sometimes the answer is yes, try a different edge. Wisdom is learning the difference. The difference becomes visible over time. The goal is not to erase the old strategy. The goal is to stop using one strategy for every ache, every request, every complicated room. That small timing matters more than it seems. When that happens, the world gets a little wider. Not because everything becomes safe, but because you stop treating everything as the same danger. This is where the story begins. You may still feel the old pull. That does not mean you failed. It means the system is checking whether the new path can be trusted. The clue is in the first reaction. Trust is built by repetition, one boundary that holds, one pause that returns, one choice that does not abandon you. That is the quiet part worth noticing. That is how the pattern softens, not through a dramatic breakthrough, but through evidence your body can actually believe. The pattern is speaking before language catches up. The evidence says you can be careful without being closed. You can be kind without being consumed. You can be private without being unreachable. And it usually learned this honestly. And when the old rule speaks again, you do not have to fight it like an enemy. You can answer it like an outdated protector. That is why the answer needs patience. Thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I am allowed to choose a smaller defense now. The old rule is trying to be useful. So if too much has followed you longer than you wanted, maybe the question is not what is wrong with you. This is not weakness, it is history moving. Maybe the question is where the old protection can finally become a choice instead of the whole map. The difference becomes visible over time.